Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Horror Inside podcast. We are here today to talk about, I guess, one of our first, well, besides it, I guess, and Pet Cemetery, but that was a bad one. We're going to talk about a newer horror movie and a very unique one, A Quiet Place. I have seen it before. This was Dylan's first time
I had
watching it.
never seen it. I
Yeah.
had been aware of it and vaguely knew the concept, but it
Yeah.
was always a newer movie that I was interested in seeing, and it was just happened to be one of Brandy's picks for a movie to show me. So, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, just to reiterate from, the past couple podcasts we've been doing. So Dylan and I are on sort of a kick right now where we are both going back and forth picking different movies that the other person has not seen. We both love horror, and it's kind of funny because there are certain movies we both have grown up with and both love, mutually. But then it's funny because there's ones that are like such classics that I love that Dylan isn't that familiar with, and then vice versa. There's some that are big classics that I've never seen. Dylan's like, you got to see this. So yeah. So we've already done Scream was Dylan's pick, and we did all four, and they were
hmm
amazing. And all of those should be up, prior to this going up. So go watch them.
yes,
And then I picked, and because Dylan had the four movies in a row with the series, he allowed me to pick three, which I'm very grateful for. So we did
yes.
Cujo first, which that should be up as well, and
hmm
now A Quiet Place, and then we have another one planned, which I'm not going to spoil, but one
Maybe you
of
could
my final
tease it at
picks.
the end.
Wes Craven. Can I say that? Anyway, anyway, yeah, I think in terms of my picks, this is going to be kind of a unique one because it is a newer horror movie. I think it came out in 2018. So yeah, and I probably should have my facts more straight. I should probably have looked at that, but I'm pretty sure it was last year because I remember when I saw it in theaters and I really, really liked it. I saw it advertised and I just thought it was a really awesome concept. Like it had never been done before. So I was like, that might be interesting. And then I found out John Krasinski wrote and directed and starred in it, and I absolutely love The Office, which I've talked about, I think, at least one other time on the podcast. I always shout out, woo The Office. Great, great, great sitcom. And John Krasinski is obviously, if you're familiar with The Office, big, big, big character in that. He plays Jim Halpert. Awesome character. So it was really cool for me as a huge fan of The Office and that character that he plays in The Office to see him go from like lighthearted prankster Jim in The Office to like this very dark, serious, but like really protective father. I loved it.
Near the beginning of the movie, I was saying that I think it's really cool when, because often actors are sort of put in a box and then they're not allowed to do much outside of that.
Right,
They're
which is unfortunate.
typecast.
Yeah.
But I was saying to you, I think that's really cool that he's mostly known for The Office, and then he goes and comes up with this high concept idea and
Yeah.
writes it and directs it and is the main actor, and it turned out really good. He did a great job. Um,
Yes.
I was saying the only other example of that I can think is Jordan Peele, who started
Mhm.
like did a lot of sketch comedy, and then he did Us and Get Out, which could possibly be movies we do in the future. Neither of us have seen those, so that could be fun. But
Right, but
I've
I've
heard
heard a
those
lot
are
of good
good.
things.
Yeah, I've
Yes.
heard those are good newer horror films. But yeah, so it was really
Which is
cool that he was
cool because
able
I
to.
like that. Yeah, I like when an actor who would otherwise be probably typecast for the rest of his career for doing something that's so like The Office is such a famous sitcom, and there's so many gifs and memes, and just it's such a classic sitcom.
Yeah. Oh, we can't.
That
You just mentioned The Office and gifts. We can't not mention our favorite. What is it?
oh the
He's shutting the door on the old man, and it's just the old man that says RE7 on him.
And then Steve Carell says me or whatever. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, that is great. Bravo. Well, okay, so I guess my first question for you, Dylan, is I like to always kind of start with the characters and the actors. So obviously we talked a little bit about John Krasinski, but also his wife co-stars with him, which I absolutely love that choice because I feel like it helps the chemistry of the family and the marriage of the two characters or whatever, it helps that a lot. So
It
what
makes
did
it
you think of
authentic
them?
and believable
Exactly. I agree with that. And
from
it's funny. I told you this while we were watching it, but just to share it on the podcast, like it was funny that like Emily Blunt literally like read the script and was like, if you don't put me in this movie, you're going to be in like trouble. Like she jokes about it in interviews all the time that like he originally was either going to audition actors or he had some in mind or actresses for that role, but she read it and was immediately like, no, I want to do this. And then they did it together, which I do love that because they're like super cute anyway. Like they're like my favorite like Hollywood couple, although I don't pay attention to that stuff a lot, but it's like him and her are super cute, and I guess because I love The Office so much too, like I don't know, they're really cute. But so yeah, what did you think of obviously Emily Blunt, John Krasinski, and even the two child actors, which we can talk about too, because I think
yeah.
they did extremely well. So what do you
I
think?
thought I thought everybody in this, the acting all around was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I guess just to start on John Krasinski and Emily Blunt,
Hmm.
I was saying, you know, they had to be really good actors to present this concept because they,
Right.
for the majority of the movie, they're not speaking.
Hmm.
It's all in their face and the
Yeah, they
sign
have to
language,
emote with, yeah,
and they do a very good job at that.
right.
Especially the high stakes situation that they're in. And credit to a good actor. I said, it must have been nice not to have to learn any lines for this movie. But then I was like, oh, never mind. They have to learn all their lines and
In
also in sign
silent.
language. So
Yeah, and I think I had said when you said that too that I feel like, you know, I mean, obviously I'm not an actor or anything, but I think like it may be harder when you don't have as much dialogue because you have to be super expressive and able to emote things through your facial expressions versus like your, voice. So
yeah,
I think, they obviously all had to have that type of, you know, ability to make it like, oh shit, like when they're scared or what, like, oh my God, and just to put the spotlight on Emily Blunt for a second when she like her labor like scene for example, like oh my god, like you can almost like feel it. You're like, oh god, like that would suck so bad. Like she, and then she steps on the nail to add fucking insult, and then she can't scream. She has to put her hand in front of her mouth, and oh my god, like that whole scene just gives me the shivers because it's just so. I don't want to say gross. That's not the right word, but it's just like, oh, you can like just feel the pain, and then she's like in the tub, and there's the
it's
blood, and
very
it's like, oh,
unsettling because
yeah,
and she knows that what's happening, but she can't.
make any noise, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's like she's going through this, single most painful thing that you could possibly go through, fucking childbirth, but in a place where she can't. And then she's like trying to breathe through it, like, oh god. And then one of the things shows up as she's in labor. When she already stepped on the nail, she has to like hide. She can't scream. It's just like, oh my god. And her acting in those scenes was amazing. So yeah.
on acting too, and like having to emote everything through their face and not
Hmm.
words. Well, I was really impressed with the son actor at the
Oh
end.
yeah.
He was in the truck with the sister,
I
and
know.
just the look of just intense
Horror.
fear on
Yeah.
his face.
Yes.
It's like, because he can't like say, look out or behind
Right.
you, or so it all has to be in the performance. And I think everybody did a great job. And I thought it was a very clever layer to the story to have their daughter be deaf and for that to be
Me
a
too.
deaf child actress who also is amazing. We always talk about character and story, and there's no fault in this movie at all as far as that.
I
Everything is
agree.
just everything is just really, really great on that.
Yeah, I think the chemistry between everybody, especially obviously Emily Blunt and John Krasinski, were bound to have good chemistry. They're married in real life, but they also did choose kids that I feel like are just as good as they are, and they all seem like this family. Obviously, they go through, and anybody listening to this obviously already probably knows there's going to be spoilers because we talk about anytime we talk about a movie, there's bound to be spoilers because we talk about the entire thing, like the whole scope of it. So obviously, like I think it also adds layers and you know a thing. It adds like dimension to the family because they do lose the son and then the sibling like right in the beginning. The little boy, he's so cute and he's so young and he's like and you don't really expect it because it's like, and
Yeah,
even when the little toy goes off, I think you expect John Krasinski to get to him right in time, but like nope, he just fucking dies and it's like
yeah,
damn.
I didn't expect that at all, and I think I actually I said that as soon as it happened.
You're
I
like, well,
honestly
yeah.
I expected it just to kind of be like a setup, like
Right.
sort of showing the monsters and
Right.
they have to be quiet. I thought he was going to get to him, get the thing, throw it off the bridge, and then the monster would like go away or maybe head in that direction. I did
Right.
not expect him to just be killed 5 minutes into the movie.
I do think it was an interesting way to start the movie because it definitely grabs
Sets
your
the
attention
tone.
and it sets the tone
And
and it shows you exactly what these creatures are capable of, what they do, how
and
why they have to be so quiet because it was just a little toy and they were like, nope, went right
yeah,
after him.
it shows you what the movie is capable of in a good way.
Right.
Like I said, setting the tone. But I also said when we were watching this that I give respect to any movie that has the balls to kill off a little kid because it's not
Right.
often. And even I said the
Right.
Pet Cemetery remake sort of had no
Dodge that, yeah.
balls,
Right.
except for they killed a 12-year-old. Okay, sure.
I know it's more heartbreaking that he was so young, and obviously he was just doing something so innocent that a kid would want to do, play with this toy. And that brings me to I did want to talk about this, like the fact that the daughter is deaf. I absolutely love at certain points in the movie where it kind of goes into her perspective, where it just goes silent. So she's walking on the bridge. They're all walking like sort of in like a single file line over that bridge. And when John Krasinski and the mom kind of turn around and they have that look of horror on their face, the daughter has no idea. She's like, "What are they looking at?" And she turns around and she sees her little brother, like, swinging the rocket around while it's going off. And she can't hear it, obviously, but she sees it lighting up and she kind of knows the deal. And just the look
Mhm.
of horror on John Krasinski and Emily Blunt's face, like, wow. Like, again, you have to pick actors that are able to really emote through their face, and they do it so well, specifically in that scene, because even us as the audience, I don't think. Oh, I think no. I was gonna say I don't think we hear it right away, but what we do, I think like John Krasinski's like walking the first shot, and then you hear it, and then he stops dead in his tracks and turns around. And then it kind of goes silent. It goes into the daughter's like perspective, which they do that a couple times in the movie, and that's so effective. Because imagine being completely deaf in a world where sound really like matters. Like it's just crazy. It makes it more scary and
Yeah, and
more tense.
I also thought that was a very clever, organic way to sort of deal with the monsters, which they learn later. And it all
Oh
has to do
yeah,
with hearing and sound and like
yeah.
whatever. I think I want to say his name's Lee, John
Oh,
Krasinski's character.
yeah, yeah. They
Whatever
actually
he,
all do have names. They're all on IMDb, but I don't think they ever say
yeah.
any of their names in the actual movie.
Oh,
But yeah, yeah.
but yeah, that was a very clever way because at one point he's tinkering with her little hearing aid thing,
Mhm.
and then she realizes later that the feedback and the frequency the
Like
monsters do
really
not
fucks with
like,
this. Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
because they're
clever. It was,
yeah, because they have like ultra sensitive hearing, but they're blind, which and that you and I were talking about it, and I'll give the examples we kind of came up with. That has been done before, but never like I think the story is so like it's been done in horror before, where this creature or this enemy is blind, but they can hear really well. It was even done in that movie, and it wasn't a creature; it was an actual person. But that other movie I want to show you that I really loved called Don't Breathe, where those
oh
teenagers or
yeah,
whatever sort of break into that guy's house. He's blind, but they always say when you lose one of your senses, it heightens the other one. So it's been done before in horror. The examples you and I were you talking about when we were watching the movie was like lickers in Resident Evil, and then clickers, which is funny that they rhyme, but and then clickers in The Last of Us. So like
yeah.
they're creatures that cannot see at all, but their sense of hearing is so sensitive. So I think even though it's been done before, A Quiet Place really took that whole concept and just like made it so unique and made it its own thing, and I absolutely love that. So yeah, so these creatures obviously are extremely they had like, and I think it even the fact that it goes into the deaf daughter's hearing sometimes where we hear nothing. Then on the flip side of that, it goes sometimes into the creatures and they hear everything so heightened. Like at the end when those TVs are real staticky, and it goes in 10 times louder than what we would hear as normal static, like the creature hears it. So I think that's why they go crazy and they just start killing and hitting things that are loud, because it just like kind of drives them crazy. So when she
Yeah,
figures out the frequency thing, and it's obviously extremely piercingly loud, it's like it can't even handle it, it can't even react because it's so I love that. I love the whole idea for this movie was so clever and interesting.
it was, yeah. And still on the creatures, I think they were really not even just the idea of them, but the look of them was really well realized. I loved the way they looked.
I
I
know.
loved that the movie took its time and not showing you the full monster
Right, they were just
a
like in
lot
passing at first. Yeah.
until the end. And I was saying this while we were watching it that it's obviously probably largely CG, but it was done really well. It's not like a thing where
Right,
it,
where it took away
it
from it.
was
Yeah.
bad and it took me out of it. I think they were done
Yeah,
well.
because I was saying like to do that type of creature practically probably would have made it look a little bit like meh. So like
I
the
can
CG
imagine
doesn't
there's
bother me either,
probably
but
some shots that they're
they're
practical.
practical. Yeah,
I
I
could
think when they
imagine.
like when they open their face and you can see their hearing and stuff, that's probably
Mm.
CG, but I don't know. I mean, either way, like I don't mind the CG in this. I think it's good. It's good enough where again, it does like you said, it doesn't take you out of it. At least they're not CGing blood or something so simple, which a lot of horror movies do nowadays. But
Exactly. We've said before that, we have no problem with CG if it's done for something that you cannot practically do.
exactly.
So for like some like action sequence, for the lack of a better word, of the
Right.
monsters attacking,
Right. Yeah, no, and I think one scene that really stands out is when I think it's when you first kind of see what the creature looks like, because it's when Emily Blunt goes into labor and one of them happens to be in the house, and she sets that timer and then she goes and kind of hides behind like a shelf or a wall or something, and it comes down the steps and it's just a very slow pace scene that I absolutely love. He's just kind of, the creature's just kind of creeping around down the basement, kind of looking around, and she's
Mm.
behind, and she's trying not to fucking scream. She's in a lot of pain, and then that timer goes off and it gives her a chance to go up the steps and get away. Like, I really love that whole scene.
Yeah, I love how I was gonna say it's refreshing
Hmm.
to see movies with smart characters, but we did just watch Scream, and by and
Yeah.
large, those leads are smart characters. But
Right.
I think this movie was very smartly written, and the characters are very smart. I love that
Yeah.
they knew what to do and they knew how to, you know,
Yeah.
should they get trapped,
Yeah.
um, they know how to, like you said, with the timer, or they obviously had it planned for when she was going into labor, and they
Oh, with
set
the
up the
fireworks.
fireworks. I
Yeah,
think that
that
was
was
all
cool.
really. I like that the characters were very smart.
Right. Because
And normally in horror movies, characters have to do dumb things for them to get killed, for the bad things to happen. But I
right.
like that they were really smart and
Yeah.
still bad things happened.
Right. Because I mean, because they could get killed so simply in this movie. All you have to do is make a noise, and it's like, nope. So, um,
I know
so
I kept
yeah.
telling the baby to shut up.
Yeah, I know you're awful. It's true though. Like, who would? I was saying this to you when we were watching it, but seriously, as smart as these characters are, they didn't freaking think to get condoms from that pharmacy they were at in the beginning, and they fucking got like he got her pregnant. Like, come on. Not only is the
Right.
labor gonna be loud, but then they're gonna have a baby living through. Like, that would just be almost impossible in with this type of storyline. But
I
they still
know.
make it work somehow. I mean, the
I
characters were smart enough to build that little soundproof box and that soundproof room, so like they had
yeah.
ideas, set up to help with that. But
Still not
so
that smart. I was saying
yeah.
it's never smart in any post-apocalyptic world to get pregnant. Happens a lot on The Walking Dead. I was saying this when we were watching it, um, that we're amazed that Clementine from the Telltale Walking Dead was able to raise a
Oh
baby
my
as long as
God.
she did.
I know, give her credit because, they cry and you can't help it. And then there was that scene in the second season of the Telltale Walking Dead where, AJ's actually born and the mom has to like scream. I mean, I remember all that being like a big deal and like, oh my God, like, so yeah, getting pregnant in the zombie apocalypse, probably not very smart, or any type of apocalypse, not very smart. But specifically with A Quiet Place, I do think I think it definitely adds an element to it too that she is pregnant though, because I remember when when it first, after the little boy gets killed in the beginning and then it kind of flashes forward in time and you were like, is she pregnant? And it's
I
like,
know, it's just
yep,
this
just
first
imagine that.
the first shot of her, not even from the side, and I could tell, and I was like, well, you
Yeah.
two fucked up.
I know, right?
It's more than one way.
I know. No, but I do like that because it makes you fear for this family like throughout the like, you're like, oh, and then when she's like taking her blood pressure and marking on the calendar when her due date is, and you're just kind of like, shit, she only has like
I
two
know.
weeks left and she's gonna go into labor.
It's almost like, even they already have to deal with, the whole noise issue, but like
Right.
having that baby, well, having the delivery and then having the baby is like having an added target on their back.
Exactly, and added stress, and it's just like, and I get like, I think that's why they do kill the son off in the beginning because maybe that justifies the pregnancy even more because obviously this is a family that seems very tight knit. They really care about each other. They're a good family. That's why I really like the characters too because it's like I was telling you, like I really love to see that in horror. Like that's why it's so effective in Pet Cemetery when Gage dies because you feel for this family, and I feel like it was the same way in this. And even though the little boy dies, what, like 10, 20 minutes into the, not even maybe into the movie, like you kind of are already like, what the fuck? Like they didn't even
Yeah,
establish the characters yet, but you believe that they're a family, and you believe that like, wow, that's really fucked up that he died. Not only because of his age, because he's a little kid, it could have probably been any of the kids, and I think it still would have been effective because I feel like you just off the bat care about this family and you want them to survive. So I absolutely, and as the movie goes on, obviously that gets more, of a thing. So
yeah.
they did a really, really good job with the whole family. And I think John
Uh,
Krasinski said that like not only did he want to write a good horror movie, but he like really, him and Emily Blunt have two kids and they're very family tight knit family. And he was like, that's what his
yeah.
main focus was on the movie, not even necessarily the kills. And that shows because there's not a lot of, I was saying this to you when we were like gory, horrible kills in this. I mean, they're sad, like when the little boy dies. And then I do want to talk about the only other two characters that are in this movie besides the family, which is the old lady that's dead already, and then the old
Yeah.
man. So like, but the deaths, even though those things obviously look really strong and they just kind of impale or smash the person until they're crushed. I don't feel like this movie's overly gory or I mean when she has the baby it's kind of gross, but again that's more of a that's not a death type of gore thing that most
hmm
horror movies do. But so yeah. So I did want to ask like how do you feel about the like because it's very brief and it's again the only two other characters we ever are introduced to besides the family, and it's you know, but like when you saw the old lady, I know you were like, no, it's an old lady. Like that's really sad. And then like when
Yeah.
he just yells, like what do you think of that whole like sequence?
Well, before I get into that, I just wanted to say I love that, and I said this when we were watching it, I loved that the entire movie was focused pretty just on the family, except for that one
Yeah,
scene,
there were
which
no
is,
outsiders.
and I was saying because that's rare in anything post-apocalyptic. It's always about running into people and can you trust these people and blah blah
Exactly.
blah. I
Right.
love that we've seen that a million times, but I love that it was just about this family's sort of survival and how they, you know. But with the older couple, I liked that scene. I did kind of like jokingly say I was mad at you or something as
Oh
soon as
yeah.
the old lady was dead. But I like that scene because it was you know upsetting and
Yeah, and it shows.
also it set up the scene later at the end of the movie,
Oh yeah, where it kind
which
of
was
echoes
really
that. Yeah.
yeah
Yeah, I remember when I first saw the movie, I was a little bit at first I was like, wait, like I was kind of I guess not really confused, but I was like, what who are these people? Like obviously the son and or John Krasinski and his son go fishing or whatever. And I also love that scene how they can actually talk by the really loud waterfall. Like John Krasinski ends up like yelling or something, and the little boy
yeah
looks like horrified, and he's like, no, 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 it's okay, we can talk near here because it's loud enough to block out the noise, whatever. So I like that scene too. But then what follows is like, wow, this is really fucked up, and like John Krasinski tries so hard to like plead with the man, but I guess again he can't talk, so he's like puts his hand to his lips and he's like, please, 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 and the guy just yells. I guess that's a clever way to commit suicide in that type of world. But
yeah
then obviously
yeah
the creature shows up and kills him. It's sad though because it's like, he sees his wife. I'm assuming that's his wife laying before him, and
mhm.
he's like, just can't handle it. So, and they always have sad moments like that in
Yeah,
apocalyptic
but I
movies.
was saying too, it's that's sad, but he couldn't just like he sees the little kid and he couldn't just be like, you know, like sort of maybe shoo them away with like his hands and just like let them go away before you do that. Don't
I
endanger
assume
somebody
like
else.
no, I agree. I think when we were watching it, we both were like in agreement with that. Like, what the hell? He's doing it right in front of this like clearly little kid and whatever. But I think it's like supposed to show he's just so in shock. Maybe he doesn't even see the kid. Maybe he doesn't really give a
Yeah.
fuck. He's just like he just wants to be with his wife. So it's sad, but I like that moment because there's moments in apocalyptic stories a lot where things like that happen, where you run into people that lose people and some people are fucked up. So even though this movie doesn't have a lot of that, and I prefer it that way too, I do like how the main focus is the family. I do like how we get a little bit of a other people trying to survive in this world, obviously, but obviously something happened with the wife where she got killed and then he was
Yeah.
fed up. But so
I
yeah,
I was gonna just add to, um, I think you said it was clever. I think that's the word you used. The way that the old man kills himself. That was an interesting way to,
yeah,
because when before he did that, I was like, oh, I was thinking, oh, he's gonna shoot
shoot
himself, and then
himself,
that's gonna
yeah,
attract more. But that's you don't even need a if you want to
a
if you're
weapon, yeah,
done in that if you're just completely done, you're like, I'm done with this. I want to
just
die in
yell.
that world. Just
I think I would prefer to shoot myself though, because that thing just comes up and
yeah,
just like rips them apart. I'm like, nah, but I mean, to each his own, I guess. He was just fed up. He's like, maybe he didn't have a weapon on him. He's just like, gonna just do it this way. But and that scene is kind of like scary, intense too. Like after the guy yells and John Krasinski runs with his son, and they just hide up against that tree, like, and the little boy looks so horrified, like, oh, it's good. The next scene after that, which we did talk about, like the labor scene and everything, and she's home completely by herself. Emily Blunt's character, the little girl ends up going to, I guess they like kind of made it like a memorial site for the son that died on the bridge. So they have like a cross and a bunch of toys,
yeah,
and she kind of like she cuts the, which I thought was clever too. She cuts the wires of the toy, but so it still lights up but doesn't make noise, so she can put it there for him. And she's kind of just laying there because I think the whole thing too is that she obviously took the death really hard. At the scene with the waterfall, the little boy asked John Krasinski, he's like, do you blame her? She thinks that you blame her. Do you love her? And he's like, of course I do. And he was like, you should tell her then, because like obviously I think the little girl blames herself a lot because she does give him the toy in the beginning, but
yeah.
it's the little dumbass's fault. He's the one that grabbed the battery. She
I
didn't
know.
do that. So that's really mean. I shouldn't say that. But
Yeah, like you were saying, at some point, it's like, it's what did it say when it started? Like day 49 or something. It's like
yeah,
they've
like
been
early
in
on, it's
this,
yeah.
they've been doing, so he should know at this point, no, you can't be making noise. It's been
I
that long,
know,
but
and
he's a
I know he's
kid,
a
and I
kid,
guess.
but you try to say, but you and I don't have kids, so we're just like, nah, they're just being stupid. No, but we both have nieces and nephews. I know that, it's supposed to show that he's just young and naive and maybe he just thinks, he just wants to play with this toy and nothing's going to happen. And I feel bad for the daughter because I feel like it's supposed to show she does blame herself and she thinks that John Krasinski's character blames her even though he doesn't. He even says that to the little boy, like, I don't think it was her fault. But
Yeah.
I don't know. There's like some tension between them. There's that scene where like she tries to go down the stairs where John Krasinski's trying to get like, a hold of somebody and try to communicate with people and he has all that stuff going on where he's trying to figure out a weakness to the creatures and she tries to go down there and he kind of pulls her back and sort of yells at her, but that's kind of dumb to say because they're just signing to each other, but he's like very aggressively signing to her like you can't go down there. And we find out later why, because it would fuck with the frequencies, I guess, because of her
Yeah.
hearing device, because he has all that shit going on down there and it might draw them to them because of
I was
the
thinking
sound,
like couldn't he have just like explained that to her? But maybe he didn't know the sign language word for frequency. I wonder what the hell that is.
So... oh my God. But like, yeah, because she seems like she's like, I'm not gonna make any noise. Like, I think she just assumes that he doesn't trust her, and
Yeah.
thinks she's because of what happened with her brother. And that even later on, when she offers to go fishing in place of her brother because he's really scared, and John Krasinski's
Yeah.
like, no, stay here with your mother. I don't know if that's supposed to be. I don't want to use the word sexist because I don't think that's sexist, but I think like,
I
is that supposed to
jokingly used
be
that word
people? Yeah.
when we were
Well,
watching
like,
it.
would it be like yeah, is it like he just wants her to stay back with the mother because they're the girls, or is
Maybe
it he doesn't really
it could
trust,
be like
or
a
because she's deaf and he's We did talk about that because she's deaf.
yeah.
Maybe she won't
It
hear
could,
if
it could
something does
be
happen.
it could be any one of those, but like
Yeah,
I could totally see him being nervous because she's deaf, and
that makes more sense. Yeah,
he'd be nervous for her because she wouldn't know if there was one like right behind her. Um,
exactly.
but also I could see like, oh, it's her daughter. He's probably overprotective, more protective of her.
Right, right,
But also I hope that like when they go out hunting, he like trades off because I feel like she needs those skills too to like
right,
survive. Like as they're getting older, what if something happens to you? Or
right.
just she needs to know how to do that stuff. So I hope that
Well,
like
he
they took
says
turns or something.
he says in the scene where she's trying to argue that she'll go, he looks at Emily after the daughter kind of storms away because she's kind of pissed that he won't let her go or that he doesn't trust her. He looks at Emily Blunt and he goes, next time. So like maybe he is planning on eventually taking her
Yeah.
out, but I think the main thing is he is just kind of worried about the deafness. And I think like maybe he does think some type of way about her giving the toy to the brother, but because it kind of comes across that could be like he doesn't blame her. I don't think because they're such a again like close family, and he obviously really really loves his kids. So I don't think he straight up blames her for her brother's death, but I do think he thinks like, oh, she doesn't really know because she's deaf. Maybe she didn't even know the toy made noise and she was just trying. Like maybe he thinks like I think that that's supposed to be a part of it. That's why him and the son have that talk about blaming her at the waterfall. And when
Mhm.
he says no, I don't blame her. I actually do believe him. I don't think he blames her, but I think he does see it as like, well, maybe she doesn't know any better because she is deaf and she doesn't really understand the importance of this whole situation because of that part of it. So it could be a number of things, but or maybe you're right. Maybe it also is like dads are oftentimes very protective over their daughters in that sort of way. So like maybe
Mhm.
that's a part of it too. Either way, I think it's I like their dynamic too because they have sort of
Yeah.
like a bad relationship at first. Not
Yeah.
bad, but I guess like there's tension between the two
Strained
of them. Yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
I think she was like she came off as really smart and really capable, the
Yeah.
daughter in this movie. So I could even see like, she feels bad that, she thinks maybe he blames her for her brother's death. And
Right.
then also I could see, she's probably frustrated because like I said, it seems like to me she knows exactly what she's doing. She's smart.
Exactly. And that's what she tries to explain to him like I know what I like, I'm not going to make noise. I'm not she says to him at one point like I'm not a little kid like so yeah, I think
Mm.
part of the tension between the two of them is him not trusting her and her, obviously feeling some type of way about that cuz she is smart and she does know.
Yeah.
Even though she's deaf, that doesn't mean she doesn't know what's going
What's
on and
going
what to
on?
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one more thing on her. I think you talked about that scene briefly, but I think that was a really, sad scene, her going back to like where the
Oh,
brother
the
was
little
killed.
yeah.
Yeah, that was
And then she put yeah, and see she is smart and I think that shows part of her, wits too is that she cuts the wires which is so that it could still light up and kind of be like a something to put on his grave but not make any noise obviously. So I like that.
yeah.
And then she kind of just lays there with him. And then I guess going forward from all of that we're going to get to the big climax I guess of the movie, but before that, remember when John Krasinski and his son go back from fishing and they see the red lights are on, which I guess that means like they have like signals, and if the red lights are on, I guess that's supposed to mean like she went into labor or whatever. So they start
Right.
kind of panicking, and John Krasinski tells the little boy, he says rockets, which at first the audience doesn't know what that is. They're like, what? And then John Krasinski's like, you got to help your mother, you got to make a sound louder because blah blah blah. And the little boy's like, okay, and then he goes and sets off the fireworks, which I think you said too is very, very smart. And then
Yeah.
when Emily Blunt lets out that scream because she's in labor, she can only hold so much in, and then when she hears the fireworks, I think she's just like fuck it, and she just lets out
Yeah,
that
and she knows
scream.
that she's able to now.
Yeah, and then John Krasinski has the shotgun because obviously, like, if the fireworks are going off, that's louder, so he may possibly be able to shoot one without others being attracted to it. But I
Yeah.
like when Emily Blunt screams because the next shot is John Krasinski going into the house and going upstairs, and then you just see like the tub with all the blood, and you don't know where Emily Blunt went. So did
Yeah,
she scream and get caught by them? Yeah, like you don't really
when I
know at
saw
first.
that I was saying like did
Where
she
is
just
she?
get killed and eaten or whatever by the monster? But I guess she just dragged herself into the
Into the shower, yeah.
before we do get to like the
Climax.
final yeah, the final thing. I think this movie also has a few really unique and pretty well executed sort of little sequences, I guess is the word. Like when
Mhm.
the kids were on top of the tower,
Mhm.
and you were saying like, oh, you thought it was they'd have water in the tower or something,
Yeah.
but it was just corn.
Corn.
Like, oh, it's the corn tower. I didn't know
The
that's how they.
corn.
I didn't know that's how they stored it. I don't know, but
Yeah.
that whole sequence was really well because like the corn almost acted like quicksand or like
Yeah, and kind of
water because they
sucked
were
them
getting
down.
they were getting sucked down, and it was very
Yeah, and it made you
claustrophobic.
feel, that's what I was gonna say. It makes you feel like, especially if you have a fear of drowning or suffocating, which I think a lot of people do that, like nobody wants to
Yeah,
go that way. And it kind of is scary when they're like getting sucked down into it. It's like, oof.
really scary because once you're like if it was water, you could like
At
try to
least swim
swim
to
your
the
way
surface.
out of there, but
Yeah, yeah.
it was acting a lot like quicksand to where like you're under there, you can't pull
And it's
yourself out.
heavier. Yeah, it's
And
heavier than water, so
even the daughter did get sucked all the way down, and her brother had to sort of
pull her
find her
out.
and pull her out.
Yeah, and then when one of the creatures gets in there and they kind of use the door that fell off as
Yeah,
like a shield, that's like so scary because like that the thing is obviously, if that door hadn't fallen in there, they may have both died there. Because so I like that whole scene too, and that's when she, I think, no, that's not when she first discovers her whole frequency thing when she's in the corn. That's another cool scene that I think you said it was cool too. The way that she's in the this is before she finds her brother in the cornfield, and she's walking back up towards the house, and she stops for a second. I don't know, she's like looking at something, and then in the background you see one of the creatures come out of the corn, and you're like, oh shit, but she
yeah,
doesn't hear it, so she doesn't turn around, she doesn't know anything's wrong, she
yeah.
doesn't
And I
even know it's
was,
behind her, and then her thing starts going crazy and like,
mm, and then it sort of
scares
scares
it
him off.
away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh, yeah. I
love
really
that.
liked that scene and even just how it was shot because for a second, it was kind of panning over a little bit but for a second or two, it just to me all I thought I was just seeing like the
The
corn
corn move.
stalks sort of waving in the wind or moving a little bit, and then the thing comes out. It
I know
was
it's
really
very
well.
clever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I was actually seeing like their long arms or whatever.
Yeah, and I love that this movie, while obviously still has them, it's not very jump scare heavy. It has moments like that where like they kind of are in the background and kind of, but once they show up there, I mean, there was that jump scare in the beginning where it was like the raccoons on the on the roof, which was sad, and then they get smashed. But I mean, so I like that though too, that it's not all focused on just that. I feel like a lot of the horror cliches, like they kind of avoid in this movie. There's not a whole lot of gore. I
Yeah.
really do feel like it's focused on this family, and that's what I really, really like about it. It's story driven, and like we were talking about how there's really no dialogue for, I would say, like the first 45 minutes of the movie, maybe, more or less, I'm not sure, but like
And
like there's like nothing, so
was
like you
there
have to.
was there other scenes with dialogue, or was the only scene with dialogue when they were talking after she gave birth and then at the water too?
Yeah, I think everything else was sign language or like
Yeah,
very light whispering. So yeah, it may only
right.
be like the waterfall scene, and then right after she gives birth, because they're in like the soundproof thing
Hmm.
that he made or whatever. So
Yeah.
so yeah, there's like not a lot of dialogue at all, but I think it's still work. And some people might look at that and be like, oh, that this movie's boring. It's kind of weird because there's
No,
no talking. But I think that if you have good enough actors and a good enough atmosphere, and I even said that the music helps a lot too. The music's really beautiful and
yeah. I
nice in
mean,
this movie.
I
It
was
works.
oh, the music was really good. I said when the credits popped up, I recognized the name. He might have done all the screams. I wonder if he
That's
did.
interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the same composer. Marco Beltrami, I think. Before we move on from jump scares, there was one that I was like, I thought it was really well done because it was with the scene with the daughter and the creature was sort of coming out of the corn maze behind her,
Right.
and and like her brother's arm just sort of he came
Oh
right out
yeah.
of it and like grabbed her foot or something, and I liked that
Yeah.
because it was like a moment that could startle you,
Right.
but there wasn't the cliche loud bang or whatever. And I'm glad
Yeah, it
there
was just
wasn't because
grabbing
if
her. Yeah.
this movie was called A Quiet Place and yet it
Yeah.
still had the cliche jump scares of today, I'd be like, all right, this movie is not quiet.
Yeah. Then it just wouldn't work. I know. No, I agree. The jump scares that are in this are fine. There's
Yeah.
not too many of them where it's overdone, and then when they are done, they're not like the cliche, like boom. Like I hate that. It's so
Yeah.
irritating. But
But yeah, no,
yeah,
I honestly, for me personally, don't couldn't see what you were saying. Some people could be like, "Oh, this is boring" or whatever. I was honestly, I was invested in it like
yeah, the whole
three
time.
minutes into the movie. I
Yeah,
was into it, and I even said like, "This is
yeah,
an easy movie for us to talk while we're watching it about what's happening,
because you
and
don't really miss anything.
even
Yeah,
if we go on a tangent for a minute about something else,
yeah,
it was easy to follow and."
right.
Because you didn't have a lot of dialogue that you were supposed to be listening to. So this was the perfect movie to,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think like, and I think also them just have it just focusing on the family without having these layers upon layers of other different characters all swarming in. I think that also makes it easy to follow because it's just this, it's very simple. It's like straightforward. Kind of like when we were talking about, Cujo, but obviously in a different way. Like this movie just focuses on this family and their survival and, how they're coming up with ideas to possibly find weaknesses, blah blah blah, whatever. So I really really like that.
Hmm.
I like the simply like I always really like simple horror movies that are easy to follow and don't have a bunch of layers. So I mean sometimes that's good because like Scream had a lot of layers in terms of like there were so many different characters and so many people that could possibly be like the villain in the end, which I loved. But then you take like a movie like this, which is just more straightforward, and I like that too. I really like the
Hmm.
simplicity of it. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. So overall, well, I do definitely want to talk about the biggest, and I want to know if you, because I know when the little boy died in the beginning, you did kind of react to that. You were like, because I think you were actually in the middle of saying something to me, and then it happened, and you were like, oh, well,
I know. I
didn't
just
see
didn't
that coming.
expect it at all.
Yeah, I know. So I guess the other big thing that happens that's kind of a shocker, at least it shocked me, or maybe you kind of maybe saw it coming. I think when John Krasinski sacrifices himself, it's so sad too, and it's such a emotional scene because he's signing to his
Yeah.
daughter that he loves her and he's always loved her, so that she knows that he doesn't blame her for the brother's death. And he says that to her, and then he screams so that he can get the creature away from them,
Hmm.
and it kills him. And I was like, no. So what
Yeah.
did you think of that, and did you expect it?
Well, first of all, I think that was really well done. It was another tragedy that they couldn't escape in this post-apocalyptic world with those kind of things. I thought it
Right.
was really well done. I did not expect it.
Right.
It like I was saying, like with the older couple, I was thinking like, oh, he's gonna shoot himself and it's gonna draw them all
Right.
in. I didn't expect the screaming. That was very clever, and that
Right.
sort of set up this. I was thinking like if they just are completely still and silent, will the creature sort of wander off and go away? Because that's what I thought was gonna happen. I thought he was gonna like put his finger up to his mouth, like
Right.
tell him to be still and quiet, and then the creature would go away, and then they would go get back to the
I
mom.
wish that's the way it went.
I know, but I like the way it was done. It was a
Right.
heroic death and sacrifice for his kids, and
Right.
set up well with the scene earlier. So I
And Emily
liked
Blunt
it.
watched the whole thing on the security cam, which is
Yeah,
so sad. So she was aware of what was going on too, which I kind of like that she,
yeah.
it adds more of the
And then they
sadness of the
just run back
loss.
to the house, and she comes out and
Yeah.
hugs them.
I know it's so like I really do. This is like this is gonna sound really fucked up and dumb, but this is like a Disney movie, but a horror Disney movie because it's like we have this loving family and they all love each other and they're just trying to we have this beautiful side to it, and then there's like obviously all the horror elements that make it fucked up. But yeah, I thought like, and it is sad that she sees it all play out on the security. So she sees like her husband straight up just get killed, but then she knows it's almost like she does understand because remember the scene prior when there is dialogue and she's talking to John Krasinski and she says, "Promise me you'll protect them, you'll always protect them." Like their
Yeah.
kids are obviously their priority, which I love just because very realistic. It's their parents, they love their kids. They already went through a loss losing one of their kids, so like obviously they're going to do anything to protect their remaining children, and he does. He proves that he will always protect them no matter what, but it's just so
Yeah.
sad.
And I again I did love that it was just about the family because again, um, post-apocalyptic stories are usually,
Filled
the
with other characters. Yeah.
yeah, and like family, the families they don't have just each other. There's other people
Right.
or everyone in your family got killed or something.
I
I
know
liked
it's
that it was all about them because it was something we hadn't seen. It wasn't
right.
like cliche, it's just like a random group of people that happened to stumble upon each other. I
Right.
liked it.
I do want to talk about the very ending, but there was one scene I did want to mention because both you and I thought it was, we both commented on it when it happened that, and this was before John Krasinski's death, but it's when Emily Blunt kind of wakes up and the whole sound proof room is like flooded because it's in like a basement of like the barn, I think,
Yeah.
and something bursts, like some type of pipe burst, or there's something where there's just water getting in. And
Mm.
remember when the creature's down there and she has to try to get to the baby and she steps in the water and it's all black, you can't see under the water, and the creature goes under the water right when she steps into it. I was like,
Yeah, that was
that is
very,
scary because imagine it
yeah.
just brushing up against her and then killing, like she has no idea where it is. So that was really cool too.
Mm.
I just had to mention that scene. I like that scene.
Yeah, that was really well done. And I was even thinking like to add on to it, to the unsettlingness of it, that she's down there and it's flooding even before the creature, and it's
Hmm.
like she can't like yell for help.
Yeah, she can't. Yeah, exactly. That's what's so
And
like.
it was also like kind of, you were waiting to see. I kept saying, I was like, did he eat the baby? Because like
Oh yeah,
they don't
yeah.
show the baby in the little
Yeah,
bassinet, whatever they built,
right,
right off. So that was
right.
really effective. They didn't show it right off. You just saw the thing in the corner. So I was like, is he over there eating it? Did he kill the baby?
Yeah, like you assume. Yeah, that's what I like too. The baby doesn't make any noises. You don't even see, like the way the camera work is set up. You don't even see into the little bassinet
Yeah.
thing right away. So you might think like, oh, did he get? And like several times in the movie when I very first saw it, I thought that. I'm like, well, they weren't. I think that's another reason maybe why they kill off such a young kid in the beginning, because then they're like, well, this movie's not shying away from that shit. Maybe it will kill the baby, but obviously, very glad the baby does survive somehow,
Mm.
but does survive. So yeah, that's like a scene I always really like. So I wanted to highlight that. I kind of forgot to talk about it, but I guess jumping further ahead now, we talked about John Krasinski's death. Super sad, and very effective. I said to you like sometimes, as sad as I get when characters I really love are killed off, sometimes I think it just adds to the story, and I actually prefer endings that are sometimes like that are really
Yeah.
dramatic and sad, just because. And I think it's gonna make the remaining family members like stronger, and it does help the story. But it's also like, no, why couldn't they just live happily ever after? Then it would really be like a Disney movie.
I know.
um,
I know, but that was a like a strong choice to
right,
it added more to the movie
exactly. So
and to
I'm
like their like fight going forward, I guess.
right, which that's why I don't mind it. I think it was a smart choice and a very interesting and effective choice. But it also, the love that I have for John Krasinski, and I think it's the way it's executed too. Like him saying he's fought for his kids throughout this entire movie and his family, his wife too. Like, and has just been, such a good dad and good husband character. And then when that happens, you're like, no. And maybe I'm also
Yeah.
biased because I love John Krasinski, but either way. So yeah, but I guess since we did talk about that, I guess the last thing to talk about is the very ending of the movie, which is, obviously the kids. And I thought like after John Krasinski died, it was just going to show the kids running up to Emily Blunt, them hugging, and then, it would kind of end
Mhm.
after maybe all of them go in and see the baby, and it would just end on that type of note. But I'm actually happy that it kept going and we got kind of a resolve in a way. Like they found out a weakness to these
Yeah.
creatures, which the audience had seen throughout the movie, but like now Emily Blunt's aware of it. The daughter's fully aware of it, of
Mhm.
how, her hearing devices can actually really get to these creatures. So what did you think of the full ending? And even like, with it ending after they kill that one and she shoots the gun and then they see on the camera more running towards the house and they're both getting ready, and then it ends with Emily Blunt sort of like cocking the shotgun, and then it
Mhm.
ends. So what did you think of that whole ending? Because I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I love that whole ending sequence. I think I even said that as soon as it like cut to black after she cocked the shotgun. I said something like that was an awesome ending. I
Right.
love that whole sequence. I love the way it was staged and executed.
Yeah.
I love that the son was holding the baby like hidden behind a boiler or something.
Yeah. So he
Then the
could.
baby started
Yeah.
crying again, and I
And
said,
you're like,
"Shut up,
no.
baby." But no, and
I know.
just the way the mom and the daughter were working together in that moment, they were both putting two and two together and figuring out that
I know, and
this
you could
was
tell on their
sensitive to them.
faces. Exactly. Yeah, like they obviously couldn't say anything, but they both like between the two of them were looking at each other like, "Oh shit, this actually works." And then when the daughter takes off the device and like slams it on the microphone, and then it just makes
Amplifies
the
it.
yeah, it's like really really cool, and the creature just freaks the fuck out and he kind of falls over and you
Yeah.
almost think he dies, but then he gets back up and then Emily Blunt bam blows its head off, which is awesome too.
But
So
no, it was a nice that was actually a nice ending because again, so many times with post-apocalyptic things, it's like, okay, how's it going to end? Is it just going to go on forever? Is there going to
right,
be some with zombies, it's thinking is there going to be maybe some kind of cure? I don't know.
right. Is there gonna be
But
just like a
I liked that the way it ended. They had
yeah.
both yeah, like you said, they had both figured out a weakness. So they had both figured out a way to potentially
Save it,
stop. Yeah.
everybody. Maybe. Yeah, that's what's interesting about it because it's like, do they have enough ammo to keep doing this? Can they actually, if she had kept the device on the microphone for longer, could it actually have fully killed the thing?
Yeah, I
Because
was
it was,
thinking that too.
yeah, because obviously it hurts her ears too when she does it, or it hurt like because it's so loud and obnoxious. But maybe if she had done it for longer, would it have fully killed it so they didn't have to use the shotgun? Like it's very interesting to think about that. Maybe they have come up with like, and it sucks. It's right after John Krasinski's dead, man. Couldn't they have figured this out like a half hour earlier when he was still alive? But yeah, I really like that. I think that it's a very clever way to like a very clever weakness is for them to obviously that would get to them because their hearing's already so sensitive that a noise that's sensitive to the human ears because obviously that frequency was so pitchy and loud like even while I'm watching the movie I'm like like that's so loud, so even to us it
Yeah.
would be so imagine to creatures that hear 20 times stronger than
Hmm.
we do. It obviously would like kind of makes it like go crazy a little bit, which I really like too because it just starts freaking the fuck out and it doesn't really know what to do. So I like that too. So I thought that was a really clever way to sort of be like, oh, they do have a weakness and we can kill them this way. So
Yeah.
I like that. It does kind of set up for a sequel though, and I know when you and I were talking, you said you'd be fine with the movie just kind of ending on that note. I would too, but I think
Hmm.
because it did make money, it
Uh,
was pretty popular. They may do
yeah.
a sequel,
I
but I
don't
don't know.
know. I think the way it ends, it was a hopeful ending that didn't really doesn't really need a continuation.
Right.
It just ended on, oh, they could potentially solve this. Great.
And
It
they're
gives you a
working
hopeful
together. They're
end.
right,
It's not
exactly.
necessarily something we need to see. It's
Right.
just something like that they
There's hope
could.
now,
Yeah,
at least a
yeah,
little bit. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So
Well,
I wouldn't care for a sequel, but if it
yeah.
was made by the same people, probably would be good.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they did continue it, I obviously would go see it just to see what they do. But I think if they choose not to go down that road and do a sequel, I'll be fine with that as well. I do like the ending, as is. I know they kind of tease it a little bit. At least that's what people have said. Just the way that she cocks the gun and then it just ends. People are like, oh, well, there's gonna be a sequel. But I kind of like the ending being open ended like that. Like because you really don't know. Like, what if there's an overwhelming amount of those things and they really can't kill them all? But
Yeah.
what if also, because I think on John Krasinski's board, because he has, this whole board made up of these creatures, like he has things written like, that they have like an armor and that they're sensitive to to noise, obviously, and they're blind. But he also has, how many are in the area, and he says confirm three. So I guess he's only seen three in the area, but it
Oh,
could
I
be
didn't
like
even
how
notice that.
yeah, it says how or in the area, and then it says three confirmed. So there could be more. There could whatever. But and it's like how if they're I wonder the distance. Like how if they're miles and miles away, will they be drawn to that house or will other noises like it's very interesting to think about all the possibilities. But overall, what did you think? That's always like my final question. Like, what are your
Hmm.
final thoughts? And would it be something you'd watch again? And overall, did you like it? I'm pretty sure I know your answer, but I want you to like explain
Over.
it.
Yeah. Um, like I said, a couple minutes into the movie, I was already really into it.
Yeah.
I knew generally the concept before watching it. Um, but I really liked it. I really liked how it was an original story. It was an original
Mhm.
idea. It was very smartly written. All the characters were smart.
Right.
It was shot really well. It was executed really well.
Yeah.
It was a I said this when we were watching it. It was a very high concept idea,
Yeah.
and I liked it. I ended up really liking this movie a lot, and I
Mhm.
joked that, oh, it's my favorite movie that you showed me so far, but it's only
It's
number
just this
two.
and yeah.
But
No,
yeah,
I can see that though. It's interesting. It's very, very, it's so unique too. Yeah, I know we were talking about like just, I mean, they
yeah,
did take an idea that was already sort of in the horror world, like,
but
something's blind but has sensitive hearing, but they
the
really
way,
amped it up.
yeah, it was a very, and I'll say it again, just it's a very smart movie, and I
Yes.
liked it a lot, and I absolutely would watch it again.
Yay. Well, maybe maybe that'll be one of the commentaries we do. Wink,
Oh
wink.
yeah, that would be fun.
Eventually. That would be fun because it's a,
Yeah,
and it'd be an easy one, like you said, to do commentary over because it's very easy to kind
because
of
we can
talk
still
over the
talk
movie
and we can still
and
follow what's
understand.
happening. Yeah.
Exactly. So, yeah, I'm glad you liked it then. I thought it was awesome. Definitely one of the better newer horror movies I've seen in the last couple years. So, yeah, I definitely am glad I showed it to you and glad you finally got to see it in its
Yeah, me
entirety.
too.
So, I guess on an ending note, I'm going to say stay tuned, everybody. We are going to have a lot of different podcasts like this come out, and I would say the next like month or so. I mean, we're
Mhm.
going to continue, but we already have a lot of ideas in mind. So if we can stick to them and hopefully, make these podcasts as often as we say we want to and as often as we would like, hopefully within the next month or so, we'll have a lot more of these videos out. So yeah, if you like
Yeah.
them, then stay tuned.
Stay
And you'll be
tuned and
yeah, you'll be
subscribe, I
interested to
guess. That's
know.
the first time I
Yeah,
said
I don't.
it.
I was gonna say that, but I'm like, do I want to be that person? But I mean, if you like it and you want to keep in the loop, and we always, and you can follow us on Twitter. Dylan and I always post, or Dylan usually posts, and I usually retweet. I'm usually the lazy one; he does all the work, but I usually retweet, and he usually tweets out when we have a new podcast. I don't want to spoil anything, but you did say I could give a little hint. I guess
You want to tease the next one
I
that
said Wes
it
Craven,
would
and I
be
don't
out
want.
after this?
There's so many like things that could be though, but. I guess I could say
Uh,
like Wes Craven in the 80s. That's not Nightmare on Elm. Or no, is it the 90s? Oh my God, it might be the early 90s actually.
I don't know.
I
It's
know
a
I
movie
should know
that I
this,
had seen before
but not for a while.
once, but not for a while.
Yeah, and it's one
I
of my
vaguely
favorites.
remember it. Yeah.
It also has a very unique storyline, I think. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna give. Wes Craven, either 80s or 90s. Horrible that I don't. I think it's late 80s, but it could be the early 90s as well. But really, really good movie. So yeah, that may possibly be next.
Mm.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.